So let me just say good afternoon to all of you, and thank you very, very much for being here. Certainly, we know that we're going to be discussing a very important issue today. I want to thank the panelists. They will be introduced by our moderator, but I want to thank them in advance. Thank you for taking out the time to share your knowledge and your vision for where we are going, because I've been saying for the last year or so, some folks are scheming while we are sleeping.
Come on.
And we need to be prepared for what is in front of us. I want to thank the moderator. April Ryan and I have become good friends over the last few years, and I thank you for being here today. You all know that we are only 54 days away from what might, in fact, be the most important election of my lifetime. I say to people, if I didn't vote on November 8th, it might not change my life. Close that door. I have been fortunate. Even though I came out of a neighborhood where everybody doesn't get out, I was that kid that got out. But as a consequence of that, I had a very good education. I've had good jobs all my life, as I say, my good government jobs. I have a pension. I have saved. So if things went awry, it might not change my life. But look at all the other lives that it would. So I just believe that if you don't take the responsibility to vote and to talk to other people about it, you are just selfish. Because if you don't care about hungry kids, that's just being selfish. Mm-hmm. If you don't care about senior citizens who need their Medicare or their Medicaid, or the black women who would immediately go into poverty without their Social Security, then you're just selfish. And if you are my color, you are ungrateful as well, because you either don't understand or know our history. So if we don't do what we're supposed to do this time, we may not recover in my lifetime. So it's important, and I know you hear it every time. It's the most important election of your lifetime. It really is. You know, we've got a candidate who's saying he's going to build a wall. If he wins, Canada going to build a wall to keep people like me out. And they ain't going to ask us to pay for it. They just going to build their wall. I'm going to, I work with people every day who would make you think they care. They get on the House floor and they quote scripture. I know you've seen them. But the one mistake they make is not knowing how I grew up. I went to Sunday school, to morning service, to afternoon service, to Bible school, to vacation Bible school. I'm that kid. So I throw back a verse at you anytime you want to throw some verses at me. But what I do know is this, and then I'm going to turn it over. The Bible tells us that the poor will always be among us. And so we have to be prepared to take care of people who cannot take care of themselves. That is what I see as my job. And today, because you are sitting in this room, that is what I see as your job. So I know that you're going to get some great information today. I know everybody in here is going to vote. And if you're not registered, please don't even let me know that. But I know everybody in here is going to vote. But the responsibility is bigger than that. So with that, I would turn it over to our moderator for today, April Ryan, for panel one. And I thank you again, panelists. This is going to be a great time. I'm going to sit in Donna's seat till she comes. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm just going to sit in the seat.
Good afternoon, everyone. You can do better than that. This is the Congressional Black Caucus Weekend, something we look forward to every year. And I'm not talking about the parties, okay? I'm not talking about the OJs at Congresswoman Marcia Fudge's party, but that's a whole nother story. Good afternoon, everyone. It is, yes, that's what I'm talking about. My fellow sisters, heart to heart, you know. And for all the men that are in here, we welcome you. You're allowed to listen and hear us talk and join in on our conversation because you came from a woman, whether you like it or not. So, Well, what I want to say is thank you, Congresswoman. One thing, we met years ago in a snowstorm, years ago. I think it was the Delta Convention at the Gaylord. And yes, and I'm going to tell you, and it was in the snow. And ever since then, she saw me trudging in that snow. And I don't know what it is, but those urban girls who make it out of the hood. I am from Baltimore, so I know, and still live right outside of Baltimore, Maryland, so I know where your heart is. My mother drugged me to Sunday school, to church every Sunday, to vacation Bible school. And then my grandmother was the mother of the church in her southern town, and they had missionary meetings, and they had this and that every day of the week. I was like, Lord, I love you. But you know, but that's what we do. That's what we do as women. We lead our children to what we know is best to help them. That's what we do. And that's why we're here today. We are the leaders of our community. We're the leaders of our home. And there is no surprise that women are filling this room because we are the ones. Our numbers are growing as head of household in this nation. Our numbers are growing as head of household, particularly minority women. So when we talk about women lead, they lead. And we have a leader right here. I'm going to introduce her as she walks in her queendom, as she walks to her throne. Donna Brazile, veteran Democratic political strategist. Donna Brazile is an adjunct professor, author, syndicated columnist, television political commentator, former vice chair, yes, for civic engagement and voter participation at the Democratic National Committee, and former chair of the DNC's Voting Rights Institute, and currently, snap, snap, she is serving as the interim chair of the Democratic National Committee. All hail. And when you talk about leading, and I hate to bring it back up, but one thing that Donna did, and her earnestness and her honestness at the Democratic Convention, the first day, IWillVote.com, okay, there we go, she's leading. The first day, Donna leads by example, and I just want to say this, and it shocked me, but that's who she is. The first day when all the Democratic National Convention was overshadowed by the email issue at the DNC, the first thing she did, she went into the room, she preached, but she said, I'm sorry. The crowd rose up. She came up and just said, I'm sorry. That's heart to heart, and people appreciated it. Thank you, Donna. And up next, another fighter for truth, justice, and she has a cape on her back as well. Melanie Campbell, Superwoman, yes. She is president and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and the convener of the Black Women's Roundtable Public Policy Network. She has fought for civil, youth, and women's rights for over 20 years. Once again, give it up for Melanie Campbell. Julie Fernandez Esquire is the Advocacy Director for Voting Rights and Democracy at the Open Society Foundation, where she works to influence public policy in support of the protection of civil and human rights in the United States. Give it up for Julie. And Michelle Jawando is the Vice President for Legal Progress at American Progress. Previously, she served as General Counsel and Senior Advisor to Senator Kristen Gillibrand, Democrat of New York. Thank you. So let's talk about Women Lead. What is important right now for women, particularly minority women, in their leadership role, be it their home, be it their church, be it their community, be it their sorority, be it what have you? What is the most important key, as the Congresswoman says, we are 54 days out? What is the most important thing right now? Don, I want to go to you.
Wow. First of all, thank you so much, April, and I want to thank one of my favorite congresswomen. You know, as you all know, I've worked for several, but Marcia Fudge saved my life recently. She made sure I got restored to health, and she's an amazing sister, an incredible leader, invincible, not afraid to take on the powers, always representing, always leading, inspiring, and she is, without a doubt, a very transformational figure. When I think about all of the women I've worked for, Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan, Eleanor Holmes Norton, Mary Wright Elliman, Willie Barrow, some in heaven right now staring down upon us, see Dolores Tucker and more. I see all of them in Marcia Fudge, and so I want to say to you, thank you so much. And of course, I can add Dr. Dorothy Height and so many more. We are amazing. And what's incredible about us is that we often fail to tell our story. We often fail to tell that linkage that Melanie knows so well, that strong bond of sisters who dared to make a difference. When I was in my class yesterday, I told the students about Ida B. Wells. Everybody think that women's suffrage happened because we had white suffragists, but didn't know about Ida B. Wells and Mary Wells Burnett and so many others. Sojourner Truth, who back in 1851 said, "Ain't I a woman too?" And so when you think about your history and you think about how far we have come and how far we still must go as women of color, we have to own our power. We need to own our incredible stories, and we have to tell our stories. There's no question that here we are in the 21st century. We have been phenomenal. Maya Angelou was right. We're phenomenal women. We have been able to beat all of the odds. And when you look at the polls today, and I'm a creature of polls, but that's what I do at night. When you look at the polls, it tells you that the reason why this country, if there's such a thing as optimism, and people who believe in the future, people who embrace hope and really work hard to overcome barriers and see opportunities, is women of color, black women in particular. So why not own that? Why not be the force of change? Why should we allow all of this doom and gloom, this constant cloud? Instead, we're the sunshine. And we have been the sunshine. Throughout history, we have dared to make that difference. We've been the ones who've been in the meetings, taking the notes, and of course, ensuring that the agenda is spread. So my answer is that we have such incredible power. And when you look at the women of the Congressional Black Caucus, if you don't see yourselves, I saw myself as a young activist when I walked into Washington, D.C. 35 years ago. Yeah, I got that kind of age on me now. But when I walked here and I said, I'm going to get to know Shirley Chisholm, and then, of course, Barbara Jordan. Yeah. And Melanie, back in the day when it was just two of us in the room, we made our presence known. We made it known. And here we are today. No one can win an election in American politics at the national level without our support.
That's right. That's right.
You want to know the precise number of electoral votes that you made the difference in 2008 and 2012? 102. Just a 3% increase in your voter registration and participation put Barack Obama in the White House not once but twice with over 50% of the vote. That's an incredible story. That's part of your legacy. And yes, we're stronger together, but how can we be strong if the most important link, if you don't understand your power?
That's right.
You are an incredible source of power. And I'll tell you this, and I'll shut up.
You don't have to shut up.
No, I'm gonna shut up. Catholic people, y'all know we're not like Baptists. Y'all start low, go slow, rise.
Stop talking about the Baptists. Stop talking about us.
We Catholics, by the time we
But
get
see, but
through-
you know what? You are Baptist because you haven't closed yet. This is about your second or third close. Okay, so. Amen.
But you know what? I don't grow weary. I don't get tired. When I see something that challenges me, I say, you know what? God is good, and let's step up. We have an amazing God. And those of us who are believers know that. And so we don't walk and say, what's the danger? We say, what's the opportunity? And I say that because you made me go back to the convention, not that I've forgotten it. But I want to tell y'all a story. It was Monday, July 25th, around 1:30 in the afternoon. And our party was still at an impasse. And I had already made the decision that, come on. It's embarrassing that every time there's an availability or an interim position, I'm somehow another call, but that's another conversation. But you know what felt so good? Because as I got the call that the former chairwoman would not be there and that there was this, and I said, well, Stephanie is the secretary and Marcia Fudge is the permanent chair. You know how that felt that night? Now, this is America, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell y'all some truth. This is only on the, and I'm going to give Hillary Clinton all the credit and all of the glory, okay? I'm going to give it to her because I think this is Hillary Clinton. And this tells you about her background. Sitting that night on that dais, on that stage of history, there were 3 black women, and then I looked back, I saw Mignon, I looked over and I saw Leah, I saw Julie Green. I said, where are the white folks? And then I looked in the audience, I said, oh, there they are. But what a glorious moment for Harriet Tubman to see that. What a glorious moment for Sojourner to see that. For Mary McLeod Bethune to see that. What a glorious moment because they had the room, they were in an upper room and they saw us sitting there. And they said, you know what, I didn't die sad. I died because I knew that they would sit there one day. And they made it possible. We were sitting there because they stood up for us. And that's who we are. And that's our story. And I shut up.
Amen. Can I hear another little voice in the wind? Pass the plate. Oh, I'm telling you truth. I mean, soul means truth. Soul means truth. Now, I want to let you know this. I want you all to have your questions ready because staffers will be walking around with note cards in the audience if you have any questions. Our panelists would love to answer your questions. And also, we need to blow the Twitter up. We need to blow the Twitter up. We need to break the Twitter. So here's what I want you to do. I like trending, okay? Here's what I want you to do. Hashtag CBCF Black Women Lead. CBCF Black Women Lead, yes. Now, you know, Donna, going back to something that you said, you talked about our ancestors. And, you know, as you said, Harriet Tubman was a leader. How many slaves did she lead to freedom? And she said she would have freed thousands more if they would have known they were slaves. And then you talked about Shirley Chisholm. She said, and she, the first black woman to run for president in 72, she said, if you don't have a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. So when we talk about that, let's go to stats. You know, you talk about it at night, but this one, she computes them and does them every day. You did your own poll. Melanie, tell us about the black women's vote and the power of black women, how they lead, and what's important in this election cycle.
Well, it's hard to come behind that. I want to just say amen. Because I'm telling you, man, this is what I know I'm supposed to go straight to this, but I just, you know, spirit, you know, I'm Baptist, AME Baptist. You know, I used to be married to a Catholic who was Baptist, you know. That's another story for another day. But first of all, I cannot sit here and say I want to thank Basara, our Congresswoman, Marcia Fudge, for her leadership, her guidance, and our sister, and all the sisters from the Congressional Black Caucus, because I know when I came here too, Donna, you know, just being able to sit in the room and know, you know, that just being in the room, what you were able to gain in knowledge and the responsibility we have. And the thing that's been interesting with this election, I want to go back to the primaries first, because at the end of the day, it also gives us an idea of what we got to do in this general election. Black women, we already know we are it. If the black vote turns out well, we turned it out. Right? Not the secret. Well, we are the secret sauce to get to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. If we don't turn out for the progressive voter, progressive candidate, they would not be at the White House. That's just a fact. The challenge in the primary, of course, we know it became more competitive with Bernie Sanders, but it was black women who, we got it. We heard the drum beat. We heard it in January when the man started talking what the jig was up. And so we knew strategically. And not that we got all we wanted from our current president, who we love very dearly, from 2008 and got him in there twice, but we knew the jig was up, that this was an election that was going to impact our children, our children's children, for 30 years. Why? Because you have a nationalist candidate who is, I'm from a small town called Mims, Florida. I don't know, everybody been there, vacation spot. You know, you need to go. But the reality is knowing that we heard that drum beat coming from a place where we know, I know a racist when I see one. I know a racist when I hear one. I know Bubba. I understand that Bubba is excited about this candidate. Why? Because this candidate is going to make sure, and this is just Melanie talking. I'm not on the C3, C4. I'm just Melanie right now. Y'all cover me, lawyers. But the reality is we have to talk to our people. It's the first time in the 21 years I've been at this job that I want to take a leave of absence and just get out there and say what I really want to say, but I can't because I got to keep my job, pay my bills. But the reality is that this candidate has said to a certain amount of people that this is about making sure that white men are continuing to have white privilege and that they don't want their wives or their daughters or anybody else, and the white women who are going to vote with him want their sons to make sure that they're the ones at the White House, and they're fine with where things are. Now, this is probably going to get me in much trouble. I'm just saying what I'm seeing and feeling, that this election, black women have to talk to our children and talk to our sons, talk to our men, talk to everybody, and understand. I was in a barbershop the other day, and the brother said to me, I was walking out the door, I'm like, he said, Miss Melanie, I'm not, I can't vote for her. You got a kid in college, right? Okay, you paying that tuition, right? And I just broke it down to him in explicit terms. What was at stake? All right, Miss Melanie, I got it. I got you. I said, I'm just saying. And in the 10 years I've been going to that barbershop, he had never heard me speak like that in those explicit terms. But that's what it's going to take. We're going to have to get out here and talk to our folk because they watch too much television. They're buying into this about it's clear. If the man's telling you it ain't about you, believe it. That's right. Okay, how many churches he go to, and the media, and some of the media is playing into it for whatever their reasons. We went to that church in Detroit. There wasn't nobody in the audience. But that wasn't the story. They showed the 4 rows with our girl. Oh. But if you was on here, you saw the 40 rows was empty. What does that mean? Black people, the congregation didn't show up. So, you asked me something else. I'm just saying.
I asked you about stats, sis. I asked you about stats. Give me some stats.
Afraid of what can happen if we don't get out here and bust down these doors and show up. They already got game going with all this stuff about all of these email things. I'm like, don't get sidetracked. They're going to try to steal it as soon as we're sitting here. I'm from Florida. They can steal it if they want to. We got to make sure that we show up in such a way, men, women, children, everybody. Everybody.
What is Lottie-Dottie and everybody?
And I'm going to be quiet because I didn't answer your question. I went off on my tangent, but I'm just afraid. But I know our God speaks to us. He spoke to us in the primaries about making sure that we connect those dots and make sure our people understand what's going on. So our role as black women who lead, my girl over there, black women lead. So that Glenda Carr, right? And we were we released our poll yesterday, and I do want to say this, but I told you I was Baptist, Catholic, and okay. Real quick. We released our poll with Essence yesterday, and what was really important, a year from when we did the poll last year to what we did this year. It's all about the issues. We can't change people's mind about whether or not they like somebody, I don't care. You don't have to like them. Vote for what's going to be about your interests. We got to get those issues. Well, what changed, Donna, was that for millennials, last year it was about college affordability. It tells you how what's going on when it comes to issues around justice and Black Lives Matter and the killing of our young men and women and children, is that now criminal justice reform for millennials is number 1. Living wage jobs and college affordability are tied for millennials. But for black women overall, it's still affordable health care. Wow. And so all those are economic issues, so we have to tie that to who? We did this last year. April was there. We asked all the candidates, answer the questions. We gave them 41 questions, every question we could think of that we were hearing from all of our research that were important to black women. Secretary Clinton responded. Matter of fact, she responded twice. And matter of fact, she's going to update it. So we'll make sure we give that information. The current nominee for the Republican Party, crickets. And we have consistently asked, tell us what you're going to do for black women. And so I'm just giving you the facts about it, and just know we are powerful. And like Cornell has been putting out his research, it is about black power, and the black power is definitely how black women can take it and do what we need to do and do the power of the sister vote. So that's what
Thank you, Melanie. And as we talk about black power, black women power, and black women lead, we also have another fantastic congressperson here. We want her to stand, Congresswoman Karen Bass of California. Power is in the room. Black women power. Black women's power. Now, I want to switch the tables a little bit on the issue of women lead. How do we lead when we are at a time when it seems the odds are stacked against us? And I'm going to go to Julie Fernandez on this, particularly when it comes to issues of voting rights. This is the first time in 50 years that we are voting collectively as a people without the full enforcement of voting rights, the Voting Rights Act. And I mean, you hear about what's happening in states like Alabama, where they're closing down the motor vehicle administration offices where people go to get their IDs. How do women lead when you have your arm and a couple fingers on the other hand tied behind your back?
Well, we always do, and we'll figure out a way. So I want to say a couple things before I talk a little bit more about how black women lead in this context that we're in now for voting rights and how we show our power in this election. First thing I want to say to you, Melanie, it is not partisan to say that Donald Trump is a racist. Okay, it's just a fact. And I don't think any of us should be afraid. I'm serious about this. I don't think any of us should be. I'm your lawyer for right now, for this minute. But there's no way it is a partisan statement to say that Donald Trump is a racist and he's running a racist campaign. That's right. I think that's just obvious. I think that the fact, though, is that we are not the only ones that know that we have the power. The power that Donna Brazile talked about, the fact that black women have the highest proportionate turnout of any category of voters. Yep. Highest, number one. We're number one, okay? So we decide elections in this country, and everybody knows it, not just us. And that's where April was talking about, that's where protecting the right to vote comes in. I'm just going to take a minute and talk about where we are on the right to vote, how we got here, and what I am most worried about for this election. How do we get here? So our right to vote has always been a struggle. It's funny, it's interesting to me, because when we talk about our power, I am amazed at our power every day, given the barriers that we've faced, not just today, not just in the past few years, but from the beginning. Right? The franchise was never meant for us. Let's not forget that. Right. The franchise was first meant for white men of property. Then they said, well, let's let the poor white men vote too. Okay, then white men are out there voting, and we're nowhere on the radar screen. This franchise was not built for us. Then in 1965, finally, we had a federal statute that protected our right to vote, the Voting Rights Act. And the magic of the Voting Rights Act was in part that it banned literacy tests, that it banned the use of poll taxes in federal elections, and there was a Supreme Court case that banned them in state elections. But it was also that it said, we've got your game, states. We know what you're doing. What was their game? Their game was to have a discriminatory law, a law that would make it much harder for black folks to vote. Then lawyers would get their stuff together, cobble their stuff together, bring a lawsuit, so they'd have a literacy test. The literacy test had 14 questions on it. All questions that nobody could answer, but certainly, and the white people didn't really have to answer them. They get a pass, but black folks had to answer those questions, couldn't answer the questions. How many bubbles in a bar of soap? But 14 questions. So that's challenged in court, and we win. We get ourselves together, we win. And what happens the day after we win? They enact a new statute that says there are now 16 questions, or there are 12. Right? So the discrimination had the momentum. They had the ability to keep the advantage on us because they could just keep passing laws. And the thing about voting is, why voting is different, it's not like housing discrimination or employment discrimination where you could have a remedy that's meaningful. If someone has a rule in their property development where they're not going to rent apartments to black people, you try and rent the apartment, you're discriminated against, you win a lawsuit, what's your remedy? You get that apartment and you get some cash and damages for your harm, right? Employment discrimination, you win an employment discrimination case, you get the job, if I don't get to vote because I'm black, what's my remedy? There's no remedy. The people who were elected in the discriminatory system still get to be there. The only way I get I have to establish that my being denied my right to vote would have made a difference in the outcome in the election. So voting is different, friends. We have to stop. The genius of the Voting Rights Act was the recognition that you have to stop the discrimination before it is able to be implemented on people. And that's what the Voting Rights Act did. There's a part of it, I don't have that much time, there's a part of the Voting Rights Act called Section 5. Most of you have probably heard about it. The statute identified the states around the country with the worst records of voting discrimination and required them to have to get any change to the voting laws pre-cleared, pre-approved by the Justice Department or the D.C. court, not those courts down there, the D.C. court, to determine that it's not discriminatory before it could be implemented. This was in place in Louisiana, Georgia, all over the Deep South, parts of Florida, 40 counties in North Carolina, Virginia, after 75, Texas, Arizona. It started covering Latino voters, too, who were also desperately discriminated against and not being able to vote. So we had this for a long time. It took a while for it to take. It took a while for jurisdictions to really submit their voting changes. It took a while for the process to get going, but it got going. And the Voting Rights Act brought us, for the first time, to have an African American representing voters in North Carolina for the first time in the 90s, Eva Clayton, in the 90s because of the Voting Rights Act. All over the country we saw a transformation, and then here we come fast forward. I'm going to fast forward to 2013 where the Supreme Court decided 5-4, now they're just 4-4, which is not bad, friends. For us, decided it's just not.
I don't know. I think you got some congressional leaders like saying,
Well, I don't know. 4-4 is better than our old 5-4. So that's all I'm saying. No, I'm not saying don't fix it later after, in 2017. So the Supreme Court decided, you know what? That part of the Voting Rights Act is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court essentially, and I won't get into it, in a decision that has been widely described as one of the most audacious, extra-legal, shockingly untethered to law decisions that we've seen in America. The Supreme Court took away the most important part of the Voting Rights Act. That's right. And you know why they did it? Because they can.
And it worked.
They wrote a decision that is absolutely unsupportable legally. And what can we do about it? Nothing. Nothing. Courts matter. So what that means for us is that there's no more, we don't know what's going on all over the country about voting changes. We don't know what's happening. This is most important in little counties, towns, hamlets, parishes, in the Deep South and Southwest. Who knows? We know a little bit. We know that in Texas, the day after Texas enacted a voter ID law that they knew was going to block blacks and Latinos from voting. They knew it. There's evidence, they knew it. And so that law was blocked by Section 5. Then Shelby County was decided. The next day, the Attorney General, who is now the governor, sent out by a tweet, we're now enforcing that law. Bam!
By a tweet.
A federal court had found that law to be discriminatory, intentionally, and in effect. A federal court, the next day, bam, we're enforcing it. North Carolina, we were negotiating a reform bill on voting. They went through all this is before the Shelby County decision. They're negotiating on this bill, what are we going to do? And they did an analysis of each element of a proposed bill and what the impact would be on black voters. Every element, they concluded, would have a negative impact on black voters. And the staffers were like, tell me how this little piece here would affect, if we did this, what would that do to black voters? If we did this, what would that do to black voters, right? So they decide after that whole analysis that they're going to just do this little tiny piece of the bill. Tiny little piece of the bill. They decide Shelby County, and the Speaker of the House says, no. Let's do the full bill. Every element of the bill they knew would make it harder for black folks to vote. So that's where we are now. That's the impact. This is what I'm afraid of. Sorry, Congresswoman, I'm talking too much. This is what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that in this election, with all the racial rhetoric going on, that our voters are vulnerable. We do not have the kind of protection we used to have. We don't have the ability to send federal observers to see what's happening in polling places because of what the Supreme Court did. We don't have jurisdictions having to pre-clear voting changes because of what the Supreme Court did. I'm afraid for us. I'm afraid for our voters, unprotected. And I'm afraid for them in small towns and small counties. I'm not really afraid for them in Philadelphia. I think things could be bad. I'm afraid for them in rural Alabama. Yeah. So what I think what we all can do, and we will lead again, is we can get out there in our communities. We can go to other communities where we are not living, and we can make sure we're working with the election protection efforts around the country. If you want to do it with a party, do it. If you want to do it with election protection, do it. But we've got to protect our own, because they know what we know, which is we have power. That's right. And so they want to stop us from showing our power. I'm done.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate. I want to remind you, what's our hashtag? CBCF Black Women Lead. Don't forget, break the Twitter.
There are about 5 or 6 seats, 7 seats actually, to
Yes.
be exact. If you want to
Thank
have
you.
a seat,
Come on in.
there are chairs. So if you raise your hand, if there's an empty chair next to you, we can have
See,
some
that's
more
what I'm
people
talking
come
about.
in.
She's leading. I'm sitting up here trying to tell everybody, come on, and she just, that's what I'm talking about. That's why you're Donna Brazile. I want to recognize at this time another powerful woman from a very powerful state. Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from the state of New York.
That's right.
Women lead, women lead. Now, Michelle Jawando,
Yes, ma'am.
as we talk about the issue of voting rights, I can't help but think of history, and the reason why the Voting Rights Act was established is because there were problems in the South, in certain southern states, with voting. Now, that was 50 years ago, 2016. Are we looking at the same, I guess, menu, prescript that we had 50 years ago, or are we looking across the board? What do you think it should be?
So I also I am a PK, AMEs in the house.
Ooh, Lord.
And so, I want to pick up where Julie left off, and she said, I'm afraid, but I start with the scripture. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans of good and not evil, to bring you a future and a hope. So that's where I start. And the reason I think it is so critical that we start there goes back to what Donna Brazile did at the beginning. If we don't have the kind of idea tucked in our minds, our brains, and our souls right now that we can win, that the problems we have are achievable, we start behind the 8 ball. And what did the Congresswoman start us off? Congresswoman Fudge started us off. We're sleeping and other people are scheming. And best believe there are whole strategies that are waiting and depending on our apathy. They are looking for what Melanie said, us to decide, well, you know what, I'm just not into it this year. My husband, that fine brother right there, that's me, William Jawando. My husband, I go and meet him at the barbershop. Half of the brothers are like, oh, I don't know, Shell. I don't know if we're going to be out there. I'm like, if y'all don't, I know I'm supposed to be saved, but I ain't that saved yet. I'm about to say all types of stuff. Because when they start to believe, when we start to take on this posture that we can't win, they've already won. And that's what we have to reject. I told you I was a PK, but I'm going to try to, okay, here we go, back to the law. So when we think about the opportunities, because one of the things that we also have to recognize is that something that our ancestors and that my big sisters, and I can't tell you how amazing it is to just sit between icons right now, to be here with Congresswoman Fudge. And I will tell you that moment at the DNC, my husband and I were on the floor, and I was boo-hooing because every position of leadership running the thing were sisters that looked like me. Okay, natural hair, straight hair, doing it. I was like, yes. Okay, Okay, and I got 3 girls. Y'all better pray for me. I got 3 girls under 6, and when I get to tell them that, I know, yeah, I told y'all better pray for me. When I get to tell the story of us making the first female women president, and black women set that in place, man, y'all don't even know what a testimony looks like, because that's what it is right there.
But Michelle, wait a minute, what about Monday night?
Well,
The polls show
right.
that Michelle Obama
That's-
had the best,
oh,
yes.
man.
She gave the best speech. She was #1, followed by Bernie Sanders.
That's right.
So let's drop the mic right
when
there.
when Michelle, and let me tell you, Melissa Harris Perry and I were like, because people were booing. Y'all remember on Monday?
There were some people
And there were
booing,
some
and they were
people
telling
booing.
us, shut up.
And Melissa Harris
They
Perry
were.
and I said, let them boo Michelle Obama. They're going to see something ugly up in here. I'm like, I'm from New York. There's earrings coming off. I'm like, I'm
right,
West
then.
Indian.
All right.
Y'all about to see the bumper
Civility. Remember civility. Civility.
I know.
Civility.
I told y'all I'm
gonna
not that
channel
sage.
a man. I'm gonna channel Congressman
I'm just the
John
child.
Lewis.
I'm not
Civility.
the preacher. I'm just a child. But I will say the difference that we have this
Her
year.
husband is telling her, chill, baby, chill.
I told him. They better not go after Michelle. But the difference is we have social media. We may not have the opportunity to have DOJ election observers, but we can observe what's happening and tell our friends and our neighbors. The difference this year, and I will tell you, this is one of the times where we've had the largest numbers of members in the Congressional Black Caucus who are incredibly engaged in their communities. And why is that important? Because they have networks and centers. Are you in a sorority in this building? Raise your hand. Are you a Link or a Mason? Ski-wee. Okay, are you a Link or a Mason? Are you in something? If you're, I know, intensify pink, but if you are in something, do you belong to a church? Are you a veteran? We have networks, and this is why I think it's so important. One of the, I think, lies from the pits of hell is that the movement that we're seeing right now, Black Lives Matter, is somehow disconnected from the movement of the Black Power and the Civil Rights movement. Right. We have always, as a community, been connected and developed our own networks. When we were doing the civil rights bus boycott in Alabama, Birmingham, we figured out how to get people to work for a year because of our networks. Okay, when they said we couldn't get on the bus, but we're like, that's okay, Cousin Tony got me, and I'm gonna get to work. And we did that for a year. So recognizing that we already have established networks to help us move forward, it's just understanding the values in our community and how we can tap and pull into all of that.
Wow, thank you, Michelle. Once again, civility. Michelle, civility, sis, civility. I'm gonna save you from yourself, civility. But you know, this conversation is powerful because someone just asked the question, is there a website or online platform to track when Black women are running for office at the local, state, and national level? Is there one?
I can tell you who's following it, and that's Dr. Elsie Scott, doing a lot more research around it. And she's with the Ron Walters Leadership Center at Howard University. And so the last couple of election cycles, we host a Ron Walters Command Center now, where we actually have young people who are tracking the Black elected folks who are running for office who are African American, and specifically Black women. So that would be the person I would say that I know is actually tracking it. I can't say that I have a website for sure where she has all that data, but I know she's doing it.
And Higher Heights also tracks this. But I want to, there are 3 states in the United States that have never sent a woman to Congress, let alone a woman of color. Those 3 states, anybody? Delaware, Vermont, and Mississippi. And we have an opportunity this fall to send a Black woman to Congress, Lisa Blunt Rochester, in the state of Delaware. And of course, we have Kamala Harris. The second time we will elect a Black woman to the United States Senate. So the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies also tracks this as well. But we need to also re-elect the members of the Congressional Black Caucus. Let's not take no one for granted. And if we do our homework, we will increase the number of CBC members from 46, that's 45 plus 1 Republican. I'm being, but we can increase the number to 50. And wouldn't it be a great statement that by 2020 we have over 50 members of the CBC, so that by 2032, 2036, we can have 100 members? And I tell you, that is the power, the awesomeness of where we are in this country is people of color, not just blacks. Okay, we got to see ourselves in a larger context, but we have to understand. This is what I tell my millennials. You know, I love them. That's why I keep going back to campus. I'm learning from them. But here's what I'm telling them: take my seat. Thank you. Thank you. Take my seat.
You make them aspire to inspire.
Let me tell you something. Bakari Sellers, I am so proud of him. I'm proud of Angela Rye because, and now Symone Sanders, because I'm off CNN to do this job, but they've taken my seat. Take my seat. Take it. And if you take it, don't break it, don't shake it, but make sure you move the agenda. Represent well. Don't be afraid to stand up, because the liars are out there every day, every night with nothing but. And so it is important. I'm trying to be nice and I'm ending it away, because y'all know that word BS has another connotation. But take the seats. Take it because you've earned the right to sit at the table, answer the call to lead. Stop thinking that somebody's blocking you. The door is wide open. Come and take my seat. Take the seat. But here's the thing. Here's the thing.
You
It's
just
hot.
answered.
It
Wait
is
a minute.
hot.
Give me a card. Wait a minute.
I'll
Hold on.
take your call.
Wait a minute. Hold on. No. Let's write it down. So let's
Take
write it
the
down.
seat.
Let's write it down.
Answer
Give
the
her,
call. Be willing to represent.
Give her.
And whether you are 25 now or 56, it's your turn.
All right. So you just
And why
answered.
you? Because no one better. And why now? Because tomorrow's not soon enough. So take my seat. That's a metaphor that ain't nobody blocking you. Stop playing like somebody's blocking. Take my seat.
So you just answered
Answer
State
the call.
Senator Holly Mitchell's question. What is your strategy to engage young black women? There you go. Take my seat.
Take my seat.
Take my seat.
That's what Shirley said to me. That's what Willie Barron said. That's what C. Dolores Tucker said.
Yeah, hey.
That's what everybody in the
That's
CBC.
right.
Take it, but you gotta start working right now. And stop waiting for somebody to give you something. James Brown was right. Ain't nobody gonna give you nothing. Just open the door. I'll get it myself. Get it yourself. Take my seat.
This is like a church kind of like social kind of like. I'm just waiting for the Congresswoman to bring the OJs up in here. All right. No, that's her favorite group. Trust me, I've seen her. Hold it up against Donna. IWillVote.com. What's that about Donna Brazile? She's passing it down. And I don't care who you vote for. How many of you are planning on voting? Amen. How many of you are taking someone with you to the polls, like your kids? My mother used to take me to the polls.
Ask that question again. How many of y'all gonna take somebody with you to the polls?
Ooh,
We already told y'all we scared.
How many of you church folks?
I guess it.
How many of you church folks? Okay, how many of you drive the church van? If you can drive the church van, you can drive somebody to the polls. I don't care who you vote for. I know a lot of you don't like that. I know, but too many people died, and it's a privilege. And you have a right to choose whatever you want to choose, but we want you to vote. But I know what some of them want you. I know that Democrat over there, and I know what she definitely wants you to do. All right, so IWillVote.com. What is that again?
I want to make sure everybody check their registration status. Some of you are planning to go to the polls and have forgotten that some of our friends on the other side have tried to put some barriers before you, so check your status. Some of you may have been inadvertently purged. Some of you may have changed your address and didn't fill out the right papers, and therefore you get to the quote-unquote precinct and your name is not there. You have to give a provisional ballot. Some of you don't know that the new rules that might require you to have a certain form of ID, so please check your status. I will vote, meaning that you have taken the pledge to vote, but also to check your status and the status of your friends. And remember, early voting starting on 9/22, which is not,
It's right down. It's a
9/22,
couple days away.
9/23, Vermont, Michigan, Minnesota, you lead the way. And by mid-October, ladies and gentlemen, while some of y'all are trying to figure out the leaves are changing, well, guess what? The polls will be open. So this is, as Melanie said, this is urgent action. Like I said, why you? Because there's no one better. Why now? Because tomorrow's not soon enough. So that's my 3 cent, 4 cent, 5 cent. And of course, all of this is for you all to take, because I don't need to bring anything else in my bag.
Okay, we've got 3 questions, and our time is winding down. And that fabulous Symone Sanders is around here somewhere. Where is she?
She taking my seat.
Oh, there she is. There she is. That fabulous.
That's a hot sister.
That
That
sister
girl
is
is
tough.
bad.
All right. Now, we got 3 questions, and I have one from the audience. We're going to definitely get to it. 3 questions. I want you, it's going to be rapid fire. Speak to understanding the importance of voting in the midterm impact on speak to the importance of voting in the midterm, the impact on the presidential agenda. So the midterm, how the midterm impacts the presidential agenda. And
So-
we're not midterm. This is not
Right.
midterm.
So quickly, I will just add, my husband recently ran for Congress in Maryland. And people say, oh, Maryland, it's a Democratic state, it's a primary. But one of the reasons why primaries are so important is that disproportionately, if you look at the issues that we're moving forward in an agenda, we're talking about black women's leadership. While we make up close to maybe 9% of the population, there's less than 3% elected leadership in Congress. So what does that mean? So yes, so there may be Democrats, but what are those issues that are coming to the forefront? There are things that we're going to talk about, whether it's criminal justice or women's health care. The fact that we don't have greater research on looking at issues around thyroids, for instance. This is something that every black woman in the world knows about, but we don't have the same research at the National Institutes of Health. Why? Because we need more black women in Congress to speak to these issues. We need people from our communities who speak to these issues not as a theoretical matter, but because they are lived experiences. So that's why I think primaries are so incredibly important.
Can I just say quickly, midterms matter because every member of Congress is elected in a midterm election. Every member of Congress and a third of the Senate. And a president can't do anything without not nothing. They can appoint judges, but they can't do a lot of stuff without Congress.
And then we have a person here who is very much into issues of transgender.
No, that's not what it was. I'm just so inspired by you guys and emboldened, and usually I don't ask to speak if we're not allowed to, but I wanted to follow your example. And my name is Ashley Webb, and I'm an organizer with Black Trans for Lives Matter. I've been coming to this conference for 6 years, and every time I come, I go to every women's roundtable, every women's panel. That's really what I'm passionate about, and not once have I seen a Black trans woman included. So that's why I wanted to ask a question. Considering North Carolina,
Yeah.
there's a bill right now that is meant to dehumanize and misgender and dewomanize these trans women. Kind of how segregation used to dehumanize black people. Where you have to use a different restroom than that white woman. Now they're telling trans women you have to use a different restroom than the non-trans women.
Yep.
It's humiliating.
Yep.
It's dehumanizing. It's terrifying because it can spread nationally. So my question is, how? By the way, shout out to all the black trans women who are being leaders in the Black Lives Matter movement.
We're going to have to hurry up and ask the question. We're almost out of time.
So my question is, can we get non-trans black female leaders?
Yeah, just connect with me. Do you work with Aaron Bird in North Carolina? Are you familiar? No. Well, I would say this: Black Women's Roundtable has a North Carolina Black Women's Roundtable organizing all over the state, and they're on that issue, right? But we can connect. I heard of your organization, but I never met anyone from this organization. We are not discriminatory about. This is Melanie. This is how we, whether you're transgender, or whatever identifiable, if you're a black woman, then you're a black woman. Okay, so it's just connecting. It's about connecting with each other. So when we get off of this stage, we can connect, honey. Just get involved. We got a lot of work to do. We need to get all black women. However way you got to be a black woman, then because guess what? Nobody discriminates on that either. Let me rephrase my statement.
Guys,
they discriminate against us no matter how we get there in that
Guys,
space.
We've
okay?
got one last question. This has been so great.
Raise your hand again if you got a seat. We got people standing along the wall, so.
Yeah. Come on, have a seat. Come on.
We're getting ready to shift to our
Second panel.
second dynamic panel.
But I'm gonna tell you something. You guys have been so wonderful. Symone Sanders, I've teed this up for you, girl. So look, that's my girl. But we got one last question. What advice would you give to a newly graduated student with the dreams to become a congresswoman? Amen. She's in here somewhere. God bless you. Ask the congresswoman.
Who asked that question?
All right.
How are you? I can just tell you, just very briefly, First off, you need to just stay involved.
Stay involved.
People want to elect people that they know that in their minds know the issues, have helped other people, who are true to their communities, and know the reason that they want to represent them. It's not about us, it's about the people we represent. That's number one. Number two, find yourself a mentor. I don't know where you live. Where are you from?
Well, that's good, Bonnie Watson.
You live Bonnie Watson Coleman or Virginia, you can talk to Bobby Scott. There are members, they don't have to be women members, that can shepherd you. Get an internship in one of our offices. I have interns all the time. Call, we'll help you. And lastly, I'm glad you don't live in Ohio, because I don't want you to run against me yet. I need a couple of years. I need a couple of years for my picture. So they can tell me that smile, she can just charm people. No, stay on in Virginia, wherever you are. But we will help you get an internship. I think that once you understand the process, and you have a really good opportunity to make some real significant impact on your community. So we'll help you any way we can.
Can I?
Yes.
As somebody who has 7 presidential, 56 congressional, 19 state and local campaigns. I started at the age of 9 when a city council candidate promised to build a playground in my neighborhood. You're never too young or never too old to start. So find your place, get a date. As the Congresswoman says, stay involved and just get to work now. Congresswoman, before I leave, today, as you all know, that you mentioned the 53rd anniversary.
Right.
The horrific bombing of those 4 little beautiful black girls in Birmingham. And I want to say before I close, to the spirit of Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robinson, and Carol Denise McNair, we shall never forget your sacrifice. We will continue to lift your name and praise of your sacrifice, and God knows we're willing to continue your work. Let us go out here today committed to register many more people to vote, and let us commit ourselves to voting and to reminding everybody to vote, and yes, let us commit ourselves to being the leaders that we've been waiting for. That's right. And thank you, and God bless you
Wasn't this a
all.
great panel? Donna Brazil, Melanie Campbell, Julie Fernandez, Michelle Jawando, oh my gosh. And of course, brought to you by the great Congresswoman, Marcia Fudge. I'm April Ryan, your moderator. Don't forget to buy my book. And that's my book, The Presidency in Black and White, and my upcoming book, At Mama's Knee, At Mama's Knee.
Listen, everybody, let me have your attention just very, very quickly. We are going to be changing panels, but we have to thank April Ryan, number 1. April Ryan's books, please get them. The Presidency in Black and White.
And the next one, pre-order, At Mama's Knee.
At Mama's Knee is her next. Make sure you get her book. Come on, y'all, young sisters, come on.
I love you, girl.
Oh, okay.
All right, somebody needs to send me this picture.
Me too.
All right, who's first? Let's go right here.
Enid got it. Thank you, Enid. As well. All right, you know. Oh, yes, you may.
All of it. All of it.
Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. You hold it together. You hold it. Okay. I will go. We got it. Thanks, everybody. Stay for the next panel. Stay for the next panel. Stay for the next panel. Yeah. I'm out. I haven't been back to my office. Thank you. I'm back. Thank you.
No, we'll say y'all are coming late for some reason.
Yes, because he's asking for it. Hey, how you doing? Good for you. It's for the kids. I know. So we have to. Okay. Okay, you got it. I don't have no card.
Unless you want me to sit here and make it a chit chat. Okay. How many of us is it? Okay.
Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Hey, darling.
Yes.
Oh, can you get this for me too? Are you taking this picture?
All right. Y'all got some work to do to catch up with these other sisters. Come on, Symone. Get your folks. Y'all sit on down now.
All right, everybody, we're going to be getting started in just a second. You can hear my voice. Let me hear you say yeah. As our panel gets in and settles in, I just want to set the stage really quickly if I can. Is that okay? So, you just heard an amazing panel about the power of black women. Black women lead. Somebody say black women lead. Okay, but you know, black women are leading all over the place, but it's not just seasoned and established black women, as I like to say, but there's some millennial women out here doing great work.
Yeah.
There's some,
All
you
right.
clap for that, that's okay, go ahead and clap.
Okay, everybody I'm sorry. Go ahead. You get them together?
Yeah, and so we stand on the shoulders of people like Congresswoman Marcia Fudge, Donna Brazile, Melanie Campbell, Michelle Jawando. But we don't have to wait for them to say they're done doing the work to get the work done. So our panel is going to be all about what we can do to engage millennial women, how millennial women are being engaged, and then we're going to ask some tough questions and hopefully give you some good answers. So at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to our esteemed Congresswoman, and I'll talk to you again in just a second. Thank you.
Thank you. See? Listen, I am so very, very excited to have this panel of these young, outstanding women. This is an election about millennials, quite frankly. So all of us need to figure out how, in fact, we get the involvement of our younger sisters and brothers. I think it's very, very important. So I'm excited about, we are waiting on, who? Oh, here's Angela. You know, Angela's so big time. She said, "Oh, I was doing Roland's show." This is how they do me. I'm going to not do a lot of introductions. I just want to say to you that this is going to be very, very significant. I want to see. I have a moderator that did a panel for me yesterday. Amelia Sykes from Akron, who's a young state rep here. Stand up, Amelia, so they can see who you are. She came here to do a panel with young folks yesterday. We had a great, great turnout. Okay, I'm going to actually turn it over to Symone. Symone is going to be the moderator today. Many of you don't know Symone, but Symone is probably the youngest person I can remember that was a communications director for a major presidential candidate. That's Symone Sanders. And so she is one of the people that Donna Brazile was speaking about that she said is taking her place on CNN. So start looking for Symone. She is outstanding. I'm turning it over. She is going to introduce the panel and move from here. Thank you, Symone.
All right, thank you, Congresswoman Fudge. Just give our Congresswoman a huge round of applause for getting us in this room for a really great conversation. As she noted, my name is Symone D. Sanders, and I'm your moderator today, and I'm going to quickly introduce my esteemed panel. Please look at their very long, extensive, and fabulous bios in this very great book that the Congresswoman's staff put together. To my left, is this my left? To my left is Miss Brittany Packnett. She is a member of the labor movement, y'all. I know y'all don't necessarily know that, but she's with Teach for America. But she is also one of the original Ferguson activists, I like to say, leader in the Black Lives Matter movement, and just bad. And she just got a promotion, so she'll be coming with us to the district. So give Miss Brittany a round of applause.
To my immediate right is a lady I'm sure you all have seen previously on MSNBC and NBC. Currently, you can catch her on CNN, and if you get up early enough, the Roland Martin Show, News 1 Now, Ms. Angela T. Rye. Angela Rye is a strategist and an entrepreneur and a business owner, so please hire a black woman company. And to my very far right is Miss Alencia Johnson. If you all are familiar with Planned Parenthood and their federal government work and any of their political work that goes on, Miss Alencia is behind a lot of that. So please give her a round of applause. All right, so this is the family business conversation. I'm going to ask our esteemed panel a couple of questions, and then we're going to kick it to the crowd for your questions. So please get your questions ready. I want you guys to make sure, throw out your Twitter handles. You got Twitter handles? Throw them out.
Oh, I'm Miss Pacietti. MS, the rest.
You need to spell that.
It's not, if you type in MS and then PACK, the rest of it will come up.
All right, Miss Pacietti on Twitter.
Angela_Rye.
Angela_Rye on Twitter.
Alencia J, ALENCIAJ.
Alencia J on Twitter, and then I'm Symone D. Sanders, Symone with the Y. So we want you to tweet along with us. Shoot us your Twitter questions if you have them, and we'll try to work that in to our conversation. So I want to jump in with this. So millennials are a hot topic right now for everybody. Millennials refer to folks loosely between the ages of 18 to sometimes 34, 35, 36 if people are feeling froggy. So a lot of y'all in this room are millennials, and you might not have even known. So we talk a lot about the role of millennials in this election. Millennials are leading the charge in this election, but I want to kick this off with the importance of the roles of black millennial women in various spaces. So these women represent various spaces, you know, Angela in the media space, Brittany in the movement space and labor space, and Alencia in the PAC and organizational world. So talk about the importance of our representation as young millennial women in that space, and why there need to be more of us and what we bring to the table. Brittany?
Well, can I do one thing really quick?
Yes, go right ahead.
So Congresswoman Fudge threw me under the bus when I walked in. But I was telling her because if any of you know the Congresswoman, you know she doesn't play about being late, so I was trying to avoid being chastised. But what I wanted to do on a serious note is just really give honor where honor is due. This is a conversation that so often millennial voices, I don't necessarily call myself a millennial.
She's
My team
millennial.
knows that I say I'm on the cusp because I'm kind of old. I'll be 37 in October. But I think it's so important, Congresswoman, and I want you to know how important this is. Not only do you hire millennials, not only do you mentor millennials, not only do you call them your friends, but you've given them a platform. And I just wanted to give honor to you, and it's such an important conversation. This Voting Rights Braintrust, which the CBC's been doing forever, she's always like this, y'all. She's about that life. So I just really want you all to know that it's not just this platform, it's all the time. So I thank you for that. Now, Brittany, I'm sorry for stealing your floor time. I yield to the gentle lady.
You halfway saw what I was going to say, right? I do absolutely want to say thanks to the Congresswoman for having me and for building this space and not having one of us here as a token, right? But to have multiple voices here from multiple spaces and sectors to have this conversation. Really, truly do appreciate this space and always appreciate your leadership. It's been fascinating being in the movement space because just like the Congresswoman does not play about being late, the more that you've interacted with spaces in the movement, you will know that women in the movement, however we identify ourselves, we don't play about issues of gender equity. We don't play about issues of recognition. We don't play about issues of ownership. So there have been so many spaces I've been in where patriarchy has wanted to reign supreme, and I've seen men want to talk over women, and folks will say, nope, that's not how we're doing that today, and we're going to switch this back around, right? Yeah. And I think that's critically important for a couple of reasons. One is that it's sometimes important to remember that boldness that we have in our youth and be willing to take that into multiple spaces. So it's not just when we're having an organizing meeting that's important. It's when we're sitting around a table full of pastors, right? Yep. It's when we're sitting in policy spaces. I was appointed by the governor of Missouri to the Ferguson Commission and also by the president to his task force on 21st century policing. I was the only young black woman in that conversation, and I had two choices every single time we assembled to be quiet or to ensure that my voice was heard, right? And so the importance of having us there is about perspective. It's about ensuring that there's a boldness that comes into those spaces with us. But quite frankly, we always have to fight for that space, right? We always have to fight for that recognition. We always have to fight because often people don't build the spaces like this for us. We have to make sure that we don't disappear in those moments. And that can get us called any kind of names, right? That can get us called all kinds of angry black women. But I'm here to tell you that the women up here and so many other folks decide you're going to call me that anyway, so I might as well say what I have to say, right?
So on that note, Alencia, I want you to give me your perspective from the PAC organizational space, but also definitely touching on a point that Brittany just made, that a lot of times we are not present. And I know in some of the spaces you work in, we are very few and far between.
Very, very few, and I'm the only one, and have to tell them multiple times when they say what it is that black women's bodies need, that wait a minute, I am a black woman, you don't need to go and do some polling, because I wake up like this every day. And so it's interesting, the question you started out with, I was asked this question on a panel during the primaries before one of the candidates forum, and oftentimes we see one or two folks. You see Angela on TV, you see Brittany in the streets, you see Symone out there just killing it, and you don't realize that there's a whole coalition of black women behind the scenes as well, who are also by themselves, right? Who are in the spaces like myself at a mainstream reproductive health care organization that does amazing things, but I am alone and trying to center this work. There are a few of us, but out of the hundreds of people that work for us, that's not a lot. And so I think what we have to recognize as young black women is we have to identify our sisters that are in different parts of this work, whether it's political or activism. My girlfriends at the Hillary campaign, they call me, they're like, girl, we the only ones in this meeting today. And I'm like, that's the same thing that we're dealing with. But it's something that I think we have to show young women who are in here, and thank you all for coming, that yes, we have a Congresswoman, Marcia Fudge, who was amazing. And as my former national president, I looked up to her. But we also have, as Angela said, she employs young women in her office. But you know what? It takes more than just government spaces. You need to be in advocacy spaces and PAC spaces like myself, or like as Donna Brazile is at the DNC. But it takes even more than that. It takes where Brittany is, who was out there on the streets, because if that wasn't happening, you wouldn't have had this disruption at Netroots last year, where the presidential candidates started to have to talk about black lives in a very real way, or we'll shut it down. And I think when black women realize that we have to be in all of these spaces and use our collective power, we will push forward the same agenda from these different corners.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Wright, come on. So, in the television space, we are very few and far between. Matter of fact, it's like one of us and maybe two if we slide another one in there and they don't know about it. And I'm like, well, she's just light-skinned. I'm like, you know. So talk about our role, especially young black women in that space. And I want to provide some context for this. So our chairwoman, Donna Brazile, is a CNN political commentator on sabbatical, as I like to say, because she's now with the DNC. And prior to Donna leaving and Angela getting there, they had only given CNN had only given 2 contracts to African-American women in the last 3 years. I don't know before, but in the last 3 years, 2. One was Donna Brazile, and Donna Brazile's had her contract since like 2000, and Tara Setmeyer for the Republicans. So Angela is now occupying a space that is a voice for all of us. Political commentators are paid contributors, and she is one of the youngest people out there doing it. So talk about the importance of young black women. You can clap for that, because that's very important, because representation matters. So talk about the importance of young black women in that space when it comes to talking about the issues and our presidential election, and then I'm going to move into that space.
So I think I want to kind of break this up into 2 things. I think one thing that I thank God for from learning from my parents, who are in this room somewhere, I think. Hi, Dad and Mom. Okay, so my parents, and then also from my CBC bosses. I don't say former bosses. Every now and then I say former, but I get a glare. And since she's right there, I'm just going to say my CBC bosses, who are also known to be the conscience of the Congress for a reason, is just this. There were 2 political commentators with Donna and Tara, black women. But if there are only 2 when I'm done, then we failed. I do not believe in walking through a door and closing it behind me, because I don't believe in the legacy of the one and only, or the 2 and only. I believe in the legacy of the first or the second or the third. And it's so important to me to use the platform to say, hey, I haven't seen a CBC member on in a long time. They can talk about foreign policy. They can talk about national security. They can do. So we walk in, and we all know this in every space that we occupy. We don't just do our regular job. We're always the chief diversity officer, or at least on the diversity committee. Like that's just the role the burden we bear. And it's one that I welcome because I think it's important for us to utilize our voices in that way. So it's not just what we say on air, it's about ensuring that there's representation so that when young people and folks my age and older people see us, they hear our voices all week long. I'm saying all week long, and it's only been, this is a half day later. So far, in the last 24 hours, I can't tell you all how many folks have come up to me and said, you're my voice on air. Or even when you eye roll, that's my eye roll. You know, and I do a lot of eye rolling. Ms. Fudge, I'm going to blame that on you, too. Have y'all seen her roll her eyes? I'm just saying, it's serious.
I heard a couple yeses over there.
But saying that to say, that's important representation for us. We can't always be invisible, not when there's all this black girl magic, not just on the panel, but just walking down the street and being at this conference. We have to be more than that and greater than that. And now on this election.
Let's talk about it.
So our voices are important because we're regularly on air with people who not only dismiss the actual voice on set with them, but they dismiss our priorities. And tying this all back into what this whole discussion is about, voting rights, you have a presidential candidate who's saying, what in the hell do you have to lose? To people who look like us. You have a presidential candidate who pulled out a full-page ad calling for the death penalty for 5 young black boys in New York, the Central Park 5. You have a presidential candidate who was sued twice. Not once, but twice, because he couldn't get it right, by the Department of Justice for housing discrimination, for having the people who work for him write CP on the top of applications, which meant colored person. And that joke is never funny. And especially when it's real, when it's in the form of a housing discrimination case. You have a presidential candidate who had black people working for him at Trump Casino who were pulled off the floor when a mob boss came in because he didn't like black people. You have a presidential candidate who called a black accountant lazy. He said he can't help it because he was born with the lazy gene. These aren't things that he said by accident. And you have a presidential candidate who wouldn't disavow Donald Trump, maybe because his earpiece was messing up, or because he was trying to appeal to white anger, to white racism, to white supremacy. And you have a vice presidential candidate who also couldn't call David Duke deplorable, and that was just this week. Most importantly, on voting rights. Donald Trump in North Carolina, just a week and a half ago, said that he supported the very voter ID bill that an appeals court overturned because it was prejudice against people who look like us in this room. That is why I speak out. That is why I will continue to speak out against his racist rhetoric and his bigotry, and we have to call it what it is. I don't care if they say I'm playing the race card, I'm a bigot, I'm whatever. They call me all kinds of names on Twitter. But we're going to tell the truth about this election. We're going to stay woke, and we're going to use the platforms that we have to see this dude go by. And I know this is the CBCF Foundation. We're not supposed to do that here, but I'm a partisan, and I'm going to tell you like it is because he's still a racist.
Come through. Come through. So, one, I want to let y'all know that the staff have note cards if folks have questions. So, please get a note card, write your question down. We want to take some of those questions. So, speaking of the presidential candidate, so with all those deplorable things, and I am going to use the term deplorable. With all those deplorable things that Angela just laid out that are the facts, let me tell you about some numbers. So Gen Forward just came out with some recent research, and Gen Forward, this research came from the Black Youth Project of the University of Chicago. And the research says, there's a lot of good stuff in there, so I want you to read it, but a key piece says that 47% of African-American millennials polled are not voting for Hillary Clinton. 10% are saying that they're undecided. 17% of people in that poll said that they are not going to vote. 18% of those African-American millennials said that they prefer another candidate, not Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. And 2%, I don't know who these folks are, but said they vote for Donald Trump. So in saying that, what?
I think they might have made them up.
I mean, this is the research. So I want to hear from the panel if that's 47%. So these deplorable things that we just heard about Donald Trump, what do we need to be talking about? What can we do to engage African American millennials in this election and to mobilize and go to the polls in November? Because the reality is that if young black people don't vote, our Senate is still going to be Republican. We are not going to make gains in the House. We're going to lose some key gubernatorial seats across this country. And, some state house people won't get up in office. And we could wake up on November 9th with a President Donald Trump. So talk to me about, one, what people are really saying and feeling on the ground. I don't know if y'all read the New York Times lately, but it was a story last week. And we got some grub for the story because Brittany and I were in this story talking about that basically what young black millennials are saying on the street. So one, Brittany, I want to go to you first. Then I want to pop to you, Alentia, then Angela. But what do we need to do? One, what are they saying? But two, what do we need to do to engage our brothers and sisters in the streets and young black millennials, professionals or no professionals, to get out and get engaged?
Yeah, and let me be very clear. I know who I will be voting for on November the 8th because I don't want to make that black sit on November the 9th.
Come on now.
But I like where I live. I want to stay
I will
here.
leave.
Right. My ancestors built this country. I want to stay here. But and that's me speaking as a private citizen, right? Not on behalf of my organization. We know how that goes. But I do think that it's critically important that we reckon with what young people are saying on the street and why that number is what it is, right? Because the problem is that for far too long, people have wanted to just say, well, y'all are ridiculous, right? You don't understand what's right for you, blah, 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 blah. That level of condescension is not going to move that 47%. It's not going to get them to the voting booth, right? A conversation that sets us up to listen to why people are that frustrated, not just with these particular candidates, but with this system in general, is the only thing that's going to get people to vote out to vote in 2016 and beyond. Because I'm not just concerned about 2016, I'm concerned about the rest of our lifetimes in which people will feel disengaged, right? And here's part of the reason why people are feeling this frustrated with this system. Because folks told us to get up and make our voices heard. We did that on August 9th, 2014. And you know what we were met with at the hands of our government? Tear gas, pepper spray, and mounted rifles. Right? So you've got young people who are looking at a system that continues to disenfranchise them, right? I got busted for marijuana. Now I've gone to jail. Now when I come out of jail, do I have my vote? No, I don't, right? Over and over again, you keep telling me that I don't matter, not just at the hands of police, but every single time I interact with the system. When I try to go feed my family, when I try to get gainful employment, when I want to send my child to a good school, when I want to put my family in permanent housing, every single time I interact with this government, it tells me I don't matter. So that level of disenfranchisement pulls people down to a place of saying, then what's the point, right? Mm-hmm. And if we hear that honestly, then we can begin to move people into a place where we can connect the dots for them to say, so you protested out in the streets and you protested at the city council meeting. Now you come to the voting booth, right? Now you consider running yourself, right? Now you consider promoting candidates that you believe in, right? And after you've gone to the voting booth, you go right back to the streets, you go right back to the city council meeting, you go right back to considering to run for yourself, because civic engagement doesn't stop the second that you cast your ballot, right? And so the conversation needs to be had, and I appreciate the way that you framed the question, because it's not what's wrong with that 40-some-odd%. It's how do we move that 40-some-odd% effectively, right? Effectively, because like I said, I'm not trying to black sit on November the 9th. And so that's what we have to do. I also think to the point of this panel, and this is my last point, that we also have to require our candidates at all levels, not just the presidential level, to speak specifically to the issues that affect black women, right? Yes. And here's the reason, for two reasons. One is that, and let's be real honest about this, black women hold everybody down.
Come on.
Everybody.
Can you...
While we're dying ourselves.
Black women hold everybody down,
Wait,
right?
hold it.
While we are dying ourselves. And that's exactly my point, right? A, people don't always show up for us in the way that we often show up for them. But B, when you recognize that all of the issues that we're talking about affect black women harder than they affect everyone else, reproductive rights and healthcare, who suffers the most? Black women. We're talking about education. Who's out there teaching the most? Black women. We're talking about housing. Who's trying to keep those families together? Black women. We talk about mass incarceration. incarceration. Black women are both being locked up and having their families separated because we continue to criminalize blackness, right? So at the end of the day, we have to require all of our candidates to come with substantive plans and promises about the issues that affect black women, because if you address what's affecting us, you'll end up addressing what's affecting everybody.
Ooh, come on, come on. All right, Ms. Johnson.
It's so funny, Brittany, you said that, because literally in a meeting every day at work, I'm like, if you free black women, you're going to free everybody because of what you just said. But to your point about connecting the dots of voting, I think about what happened in Chicago when they were like, well, F this state attorney who won't prosecute the Chicago PD. Folks went out, young black activists went out and organized, got her out of her seat and got a black state attorney, Kim Foxx, right? That's a win. That's a huge win. And which it makes me mad when there are politicians or people running for office who act very flippant towards the movement and don't even see that power there. So to Brittany's point, it is connecting the dots. I also encourage the candidates, particularly the candidates who have been around for a long time, who aren't new to this. They need a new strategy.
You think that was at Bernie? I thought that was him.
It wasn't.
Oh, no, that was Trump, actually. That was Trump.
It wasn't a dig at all, okay? But I know how to vote. No, but I think
It was a dig.
I think you have to realize, wait a minute, what black folks have said, listen, we are, for the most part, loyal to the Democratic Party, but what we've been getting on the return hasn't worked for us. So we actually need a new form of engagement. So that's cool, you've been around for a long time, and we actually need for you to know that system, but I actually need for you to sit here and listen to me. Not only listen to me, how about you hire me? Or how about you make me, or make that black woman that you send out to do the dirty work, make her the face of your campaign, which is, I think, something that Bernie Sanders was smart at the campaign to have you out there, Symone. For me to look and see a young sister out there, I was like, oh, she gets my issues. And so I think it's the step back approach that some of these candidates have to take and let not only the black women in their campaigns lead, but also connect those dots and listen for some new strategies. And one other thing about connecting the dots, for me, it was in 2013 when they gutted the Voting Rights Act. I knew the Supreme Court was on the line because we have a Democratic president. We think everything's going to be okay. No. What's happening on that bench at the Supreme Court? And last year, I was sitting there and I told my boss, I said, you know what? This election isn't about if Hillary wins or we get some more black women senators. Actually, it is. But this is about who is going to appoint some Supreme Court justices. Because what I don't want is in 20, 30 years, when my daughter or son is my age, they look back and say to me, well, Mom, what happened? Why are all these Supreme Court justices taking away all of my fundamental rights, not just chipping away at it? So that's something that we really have to connect with millennials on, particularly millennials and activists who aren't like the four of us, who have access to this information and do this every day. But that is really what this election is about, that Supreme Court bench.
Come on. Okay, Angela, and also in your comments, I heard earlier you talked about the apocalyptic productivity on a panel somewhere.
Did I say that?
You introduced it into the conversation and gave that perspective. So I also want to hit on the apocalyptic productivity.
I don't know who said that.
Ooh, they said it was you.
Lies. Because I'm like, you're going to have me breaking down something else.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. That sounds
Well,
really good.
We're going to talk about the apocalyptic productivity right after this. Well, I want to hear your comments first.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. So let me go here. In real life, naked and not ashamed, truth before God, I have no idea what that is, but I can't wait to hear about it. It sounds interesting. Now, the one thing that I continue to wrestle with today, and I think more importantly, just broadly throughout this election, is it's not just about reaching millennials this election. There are a lot of folks who look like us who are just not excited about this. And I think if we're honest, there's a whole lot of it that has to do with how our black president was treated. I forgot when I was on my Donald rant that he is clearly the spokesperson of the birther movement as well. And of course that had everything to do with Barack Obama being a black man who was the editor of the Harvard Law Review, and Donald Trump also needed his transcripts because how dare this black man get into Harvard and Harvard Law School, and then on top of that he had to be an affirmative action admittee, whatever, affirmative action beneficiary. I'm proud my ancestors built this joint for free, so moving right along. And on that point, Brittany, when I think about you and the work that you've done in this space and so many other sisters and brothers, I just wonder if like we need something bigger than the candidates.
Yep.
And one of the things that's really like it's moving me right now, and I'm gonna be honest, like there's no strategy around this, but like I kind of want to just focus group this really quick. So the national anthem. And what Colin Kaepernick has done recently by shedding light on this, I'm going to be very honest with you all. I'm slightly ashamed about it, but I did not know that third verse of the Star Spangled Banner. I didn't. How many of y'all just learned about this recently? So half of this room is highly educated, and thank God for y'all. I was not. Donald Trump must love me because I'm the less educated on this point. I'm still not supporting him. It's just he loves the poorly educated. When the third verse talks about even the hireling and the slave can't be. It's basically like you can't. What is the exact verse? You can't escape the death. You can't escape the death.
Right.
So my thing is, how many of you all know how we could change the national anthem? No, in real life, that's like a question. Yell it out. Yell it out and answer to me. Symone, just give me 2 seconds. You don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you. Oh, what'd you say, Dad? You didn't answer the call to question, but thank you. I appreciate that, James Weldon Johnson. The call of the question, sir. The call of the question, sir, is how do we change? Does anyone know how we would go about changing? Yes, but what's the process?
Is it an amendment?
Say it again. It's an act of Congress. The reason why we have the national anthem is because Congress passed a resolution that I believe Woodrow Wilson signed, and that became our national anthem. So let's just say this. Let's say that, fine, you're not ready for Hillary, fine. Let's say you're really not feeling Donald Trump. I hope that's your answer. Let's say that we have the potential to change the national anthem. Like, let's just roll with me on this for a second. We talked about this when it came up for the Confederate flag. CBC members activated, and you saw a lot of things changing around the Confederate flag. It's symbolism, but these symbols are so important because of everywhere you turn, the value of Black lives is compromised, or we don't matter, even if it's not in the official part, because people say, well, that verse isn't in there for a reason. It was in the writer's heart. Daddy, I don't know if they're going to go and lift every voice and saying, I feel you. I can get through that whole first verse without the paper, but that second and the third, I need help every now and then. But my only point is this. What if we just mobilized on like 3 things that really matter to us? And like these are the 3 issues that our president, our new Democratic Senate, I think that I know some of y'all can't clap because you're affiliated with the foundation. That's fine. And maybe even a Democratic. I love Miss Fudge. Maybe it's more of a stretch, but maybe even a Democratic House.
Come on.
Here's the reality. What is our action item? What are our action items? What is our agenda? And I feel like that's the thing that will inspire us. If we really believed that we could change the national anthem because it was insulting to us, y'all know Jewish people wouldn't go for this. Y'all know the LGBT, and that's not an insult, that's real. They organized, they moved. The LGBTQ community wouldn't go for this. The North Carolina transgender bill. There was a letter that went out. Some of my clients signed on to it. 60 CEOs like, we will pull out of North Carolina. We have that kind of power, y'all. And we have to exercise it not just at the ballot box, but we have to believe that we could change the national anthem. We could make sure every Confederate flag came down. We can ensure that minimum wage is higher. We can't do any of that if we won't at least take that first step and go vote.
Right.
I know I might be way off message.
No, you.
Yes, you are.
It's your panel. It's your panel. Come on, we got another seat. Who you first?
It's your panel. Come on.
Confederate flag. Now, because of the work the Congressional Black Caucus did, because of the work the Congressional Black Caucus did, they had to take down the Confederate flag, of course, in all Capitol buildings. So they refused to put any flags back up. That's the place I work. They decided we're going to use the coins of the states. Lord. Not the
But what's
flag,
on those coins?
the coin. Because they refused to want to support the fact that the Confederate flag wasn't there. These are the people I deal with. That's why we need young people to be prepared to take our place. We can't do this forever.
So, yes, let's talk about that. So, I wholeheartedly agree. And again, I am only able to be doing lots of things that I'm doing right now. Matter of fact, everything I'm doing right now because of Donna Brazile. Because she held me up, propped me up, pushed me over there, and told me to stay. So that's the only reason. But I was having this conversation with Madam Chair last night, and she was saying, we need to make sure we're pumping up the next generation because y'all got it. I want you all to be able to come out of this election the way we came out with Jesse Jackson. And they came out, they knew the rules, they came out in prominent positions, and they've put their stakes in the ground and they've been there. And I said, well, Donna, we want to come out, but, Patrice at the Democratic National Committee and Julie, they're the only two people, young of us, that know the rules right now. Right. So-and-so and so-and-so over there, they're the only two people in that space. So I also want to talk about the importance of, I think a lot of times people talk about getting millennials engaged and involved and young folks and young black men and young black women, and then we go out and we pick two that we really like and that we see real great potential in. And we pick three. Right. Or, and everybody puts their eggs in that basket. Like, I'm real happy that so many people love on me and my sisters up here, but, we are not an anomaly.
That's right.
No.
There are so many Alencias, Angelas, Brittany's, and Simone's out there, but we need to love on some other young people. So let's talk real quick about the importance of making sure that there is space for other people just like us, and we don't got to wait. I mean, people could have said that I need to wait because we got Angela out there. Angela's going to hold down the media space. You're going to go over here and do that. No. Why can't we tag team it and do it together?
We do it now.
We be doing it right now. I'll be like, get them, sis, get them. They lying, get them. Ooh, they racist, get them. So, every day, ooh, roll them, yes. So talk about that importance because it is exhausting to be the two, the one, or sometimes the three, when I know it's a whole lot of capable young black people just like me, sitting waiting for somebody to be like, oh,
That's
you
right.
too.
That's right. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why it's important that we are in as many autonomous positions as possible. Here's why I say that. So, and I'm going to talk about my full-time work for a little bit. So the role that I'm currently in, I run Teach for America in St. Louis, which is my hometown, which means that I serve 20,000 low-income students, most of whom look just like me. And when I came in, most of our teachers did not look just like me, and most of our staff did not look just like me. But aspiring to this position of executive director meant that I was in the position of power to change that, right? And to Angela's point, I didn't get to walk in the door and close it behind me and forget that it was my responsibility to do that, right? Now, is that an additional burden that gets placed on us? Absolutely, but it's a burden I'll take every single time, right? Because somebody took that burden for me to be there in the first place. So that meant that 50% of my leadership staff and 40% of my team are now people of color, right? 40% of our teachers are people of color. We train our teachers in St. Louis now on culturally responsive pedagogy because I have the power to change it. I don't actually have to go with what this model is. I'm in the position where I can say, let's do something different, right? And what it also meant was that I created a position for a chief of staff, and I hired a black woman into it so that we could train her up to do it later. The job that I'm moving into now is because the conversation is saying, we don't get to engage in paternalism in our communities anymore, where privileged, wealthy elites sit around a table and build an agenda for black people. Actually, the agenda that black people are building for ourselves is perfectly fine, and we need to figure out how we help actualize that, right? We should be a lever to that, not the other way around. And so that means that we need a civil rights agenda that's created for the people and by the people. Well, is there anybody to do that? Nope. Guess what? I'll do it, and here are the people that I'm gonna hire, right? And so a lot, especially black women, we don't want to necessarily talk about ambition is a bad word, right? Black women are the least likely to negotiate a salary, right? Black women are the least likely to advocate for a promotion for ourselves because we just figure, well, somebody will see us and tap us on the shoulder and we'll do it. But to your point, when we get tapped, it's only one or two of us, right? So actually, we can't wait for opportunities. We have to go create them for ourselves. And when we do, we have to remember to keep and kick that door wide open for the people coming behind us. And we can do that when we are in the positions of influence and power and authority that are ours to be taking because we're brilliant and bold and beautiful and magical and all of the things that people need to have in those positions in the first place.
It's something to piggyback off something you said. My grandmother, she raised me. I was raised by strong Southern black women to where I didn't find my voice till I was 18 because I couldn't get in the conversation. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to school.
That's hilarious.
All right. But my grandmother always said, you might slow me down, but you won't stop me. And she was like, you just keep going. And then she taught me, baby girl, don't ask for permission. Ask for forgiveness later. And I flipped that and said, I actually am not going to ask for forgiveness for being bold about what it is that I know I deserve. And so I think we have to, one, create this environment where I think patriarchy and anti-blackness has definitely put us in this position of putting black women against each other. The whole world is against us. Why are we against each other? And so I'm grateful to women like Michelle Jawando's in here for kicking the door open. My sister, my PK sister too.
Hey,
for
PKs, yes.
Oh, PK and sorors. But for kicking the door open and saying, you know what, I'm still going to stay in the room, in the center of the room, and have the power, but I'm bringing along this sister too. So when I negotiate, and just for the young women here, don't be afraid to negotiate not only a better salary and also a seat at the table, but a budget and a staff. And I said, you know what? Everybody I hire is going to be a person of color, and what y'all going to do? What you going to do? We're going to create a department, and we are going to be the experts. And we're going to be the experts on how to engage people of color. You know how you do that? You hire people of color. And therefore, you create a pipeline. I remember we had some interns, and I had some fellows, and I said, before they leave, we have to find them more jobs in this organization to create that pipeline. And so it is that not every single one of us I know has the example that they wake up to every morning of black women who are just kicking down doors, burning down everything to be at that table. But there are people like the ones on this panel who are opening the door and lifting as we climb. So I think that is the importance of the work that we are trying to do and building a pipeline for our young sisters and brothers in here.
You want to take a stab? Well, yeah, take a stab. Okay, well, wait.
Well, I'm about
How
to go
about
back
this?
to voting, so I don't get
Well,
in trouble
I'm going to go to
with
vote. Hold on. So, one, I want to open up to, so we're entering into the community portion.
Wait, before you do that, so y'all know I had to go on here. It was driving me nuts. I had to get the actual words. It's just one line. I just have
Oh,
to
yes,
read it.
please read the line.
Okay, it says, no refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lord.
We need to change that post-haste, in real life.
All right, we got an item on the agenda. Do we have a question from the crowd? Yes, ma'am. Please stand up. And also, ladies, as we're answering these questions, I'm going to keep us to 30-second answers so we can get as many questions as possible, and I'm going to time y'all. Ooh. Yes, ma'am.
In charge. Yes, ma'am.
All right now.
Same struggles y'all had. Yep.
That's right.
But there are some lessons we learned along the way. So I say all of us, boomers, and basically, all you millennials that are in the room, that we need to explore a conversation between black women. Because see, first we were colored, we were Negroes, right? We're Afro-Americans, and now we are African-Americans. So the conversation becomes, how do we define ourselves? So that's the conversation I'd like us to have.
Perfect. I don't think we got 30 seconds for that, because that doesn't need a response. That's the second item on the agenda. So we are building our
We're changing the
agenda.
national anthem, and we are defining ourselves.
Defining ourselves with a multi-generational conversation with
And
black
thank you
women.
for your sacrifice and your service.
Thank you. I'm going to try to keep it balanced on your side of the room. Yes, stand up if you have a question. Yes, ma'am, right over here in the purple.
Thanks, sis. That's why I knew the answer in the old poli-sci major, so I'll have a conversation with you so we can look at the history of the bill that tried to do that before. California, LA County, the most populous county in the country. Young black women under 34 are voting, who are already registered, are voting at 0.02%. And so, as we talk about the agenda, we need concrete actions or examples of what we are going to do to engage, empower, hear, whatever the action verb is, So those young sisters understand that as we're fighting for early care and education, permanent supportive housing, clean water and air, all of these critical issues that disproportionately impact them and their children, their communities, they have to be present.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
I think that's a really good question. And Symone, to your point, I don't know that there's a 30-second response. What I would definitely encourage, and I think this is, I don't know if you're talking to like the Clinton campaign or if there are super PACs that can afford to do certain types of focus grouping, but you have to figure out a way to, one, provide funding for social media ads, to, you can't pitch the candidate. I don't think, in all honesty, for some people, they're not excited about the candidate. You have to put ads up and have conversations about our issues. Black people are issue voters. And we have a lot of issues on the table, y'all, that need to be discussed. So I would encourage focus groups and having conversations about our issues.
Can I just add to that really quickly? In 2012, I worked on the president's reelection campaign in headquarters, and one of the things that we did, we went to where people are. So we had a barbershops and beauty salons initiative, DJs for Obama's, like cookouts, thanks to Stephanie Brown James for all of this, right? You got to go where people are, and to Angela's point, if people aren't excited about the candidate, it's not the candidate, it's the issues and where they are. Don't try to bring them to us, try to go to them.
Perfect. Another question. We'll go here, then there. Yes,
My name
sir.
is Asa Gordon. I'm this year's recipient of the National Civil Rights and Justice Award that was presented to me at my presentations at the National Civil Rights Conference in Meridian, Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It highlighted something that many of us are unfamiliar with. How many of you have heard of Gordon versus the Clerk of the House of Representatives? Exactly. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama are states that award their electors on a winner-take-all basis that is not based on state stature. That means that they must award, in proportion to the popular split, or reduce their representation in Congress in proportion to that disfranchised population. I am the first and only one who has tried to enforce the second section of the 14th Amendment reduction of representation clause since Reconstruction. That provides the opportunity to dismantle all of these voter ID laws. Second thing, Taxpayer Voter ID Act. If you pay if the document is good enough to take my money, it's good enough to take my vote.
All right,
you don't
now.
require photo ID to take my money. You don't need a photo ID to take my taxes. So anyone who pays their federal taxes in any state is automatically should be registered to vote.
I agree.
And the state is entitled to send, wait a minute, the state is entitled to send to every federal taxpayer in the state a voter ID and registration card or be reduced in representation in proportion to those voter ID and registration cards that they do not send out to their taxpaying citizens.
All right. All right. So, I'm so sorry. I know we want to take tons of questions. Okay. I will take your question. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. I just really appreciate all of the spirit of collaboration, but what I experience oftentimes is the competition among women that look just like me. They're not excited when I come there and when I say that I'm graduating and when I say, are there any openings? They look at me kind of with an eyebrow up. So my question is, how is it that I can kind of say, I understand you have been there and you have the seat and you have the position. I'm not there to try to take your position. If anything, I would like to assist you in moving forward and staying where you are. So do you have any advice so that I'm not looked at as a threat?
You're always really quickly, because we're supposed to be talking about voting rights, but I hear you. I just would reject the spirit of competition for yourself. You know who you are. You know that when you go there, you'll open doors, and anyone that's going to do that, haters going to hate. You don't have time for it. Just walk in your purpose. You know who you're supposed to be. The rest of the people are threatened because they haven't figured out who they are, but you ain't got time for that. Neither do we, because we're supposed to be talking about voting rights. We love you, sis, and we encourage you to walk through the open door. Listen,
Come on,
So-
that's true.
I'm gonna get in trouble. Look at Miss Fudge.
No, we not, because I got you on the apocalyptic productivity. So that's how we going to bring it back. Y'all don't even know. I got y'all.
What is that?
I'm going to tell you when we wrap it up. It's going to take us back to voting rights.
Symone 9, the science guy. I don't know what this is.
All right, you go. Now, hold up. You need to bring it home, okay? I want you to bring it home. We're going to go to apocalyptic productivity after you're done.
Oh, indeed. Hi, my name is Super Caddy. I'm here with the Silver Bee Royalty Roundtable, and I would like to know what message can you give to our generation's hip-hop artists?
Ooh, come on.
Artists.
I defer to the movement.
I know, I just read everything right. Come on,
You know, I'll just say art has been a
Bust
really.
a rhyme.
That is not my ministry.
Really got bars.
I wish. Here's all I'll say very quickly. Art has been critical to every social movement that has ever been successful, ever. It has been the painters, it has been the writers, it has been the musicians, the rappers, the poets who remind everybody how to imagine what is possible for us, right? So my word to you all, my challenge, my ask is that you help us keep our imaginations open and help us to remember just how powerful Blackness is for when it looks the darkest.
And know that we need you. Your voice and your influence goes places that our voices cannot go.
Say that. All right. Actually, this is going to be the actual last question per the Congresswoman. All right.
Okay. Monica Watson. I'm very proud to say that I just got hired for Karen Tolles. I am her new constituent liaison.
Oh, yay.
Thank you. And I say that because I just finished lunch with her, and we were talking about coming here. I love the energy because, like, everyone's so supportive. You know, everyone's making these connections. Her concern is, yeah, we have this high from CBC every year, but how do we utilize the information that we get here, you know, after the high is gone? How do we actually implement that in our communities?
I mean, I just want to, I would turn the question back. I think, honestly, like, if we're really, really honest, this is the same question we ask every year, right, Congresswoman? Right. We have to start answering that. So did you guys come up with any solutions at lunch?
Well, so you've already got your assignment.
Come on now. I'm going to take my moderator hat off for a second and say this. I think we take our eye off the ball on our issues sometimes. So many times, actually. And that's why we continuously come back to these great spaces with these same questions, because we take our eye off the ball of the issues. So the way we answer that question is to keep our eye on the ball of the issue. So we keep our eye on voting rights. We keep our eye on women's reproductivity. We keep our eye on the fact that Donald Trump is a racist and a bigot, and I don't work for nobody, so I can say that. And he is not going to be the 45th president of the United States. We keep our eye on the fact that young people are leading every single movement. And we have to not only be at the table, but be engaged and involved in the conversation. And before I turn it back over to the Congresswoman, let me tell you about apocalyptic productivity.
Please, God.
So I have been talking to multiple people around the country, young people. I've been talking to some of my movement people, some of your movement people. We were talking about apocalyptic productivity last night. And what it is there are lots of people, young people actually, that believe we need to just go ahead and let Donald Trump be president. Because it would bring us to the cusp of
and you
something.
thought I said this?
No, I was saying you was talking about. I was saying you was talking about this concept and how it's bad.
I almost gave you an Angela eye roll.
So they said people are saying out here in the streets, some of that 47% that I was talking about, that we need to let Donald Trump bring us to the brink of what is so absolutely horrible. We need to throw up our hands in the fight against voting rights. We need to throw up our hands in the fight for criminal justice. We just need to throw up our hands in the fight for this election, so that we can come back together and get it together and be so motivated that we're going to get it all right and done come 2020. And so I say all that to say is Donald Trump is not going to bring us to the cusp of nothing. He's going to grind us up.
Yes, yes.
So the issues are too vast. We have too much at stake in this election. And the stakes are entirely too high. Our voting rights are continuously under attack. If our vote wasn't so important, they wouldn't be trying to take it away. So young people like us on this panel, young people I see in the audience, our colleagues, people that are in this room, we are more committed than ever to make sure we are doing our part to bring young people like us along, to get us engaged and involved on the issues, so that when we wake up on November 9th, you know, we not a part of the apocalypse, the Blacksit, but we are waking up with a Congress and with the president and with governors and with state folks across the country with which we can do the real work, with which we can continue to protect our voting rights and restore the Voting Rights Act and get some real results for our community. So with that, I want to say thank you to these amazing panelists.
Thank you
They were
to our
amazing.
moderator.
Thank you. And I want to give everybody a huge round of applause to Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. You know, I didn't come from the CBC. Before I went to work for Bernie Sanders, I worked in the trade movement. But when I got into my job, and even when I got out of my job, and then I got another job, because it was black women that gave me my other job, and I got to the convention, and even before that, it's black women that really wrap their arms around me, but Congresswoman Fudge is one of those people, and she will tell you when it's right, she will tell you when it's wrong. But when I got the email that said that the Congresswoman wants you to come moderate this platform, I was so honored, because it's black women like Congresswoman Fudge, and so many black people in this room that make it possible for us to do what we do. And I am touched, and I want you to know you have touched us, and we really appreciate you.
That's real.
Oh, Lord, don't let me get up here and start crying.
She's trying to make everybody cry.
Let me say again, thank them. They're just such outstanding young women. Just give them another round of applause. And I want my staff to come down front. I want my staff to come down so you can see my staff. Come down here. Come on, Felix. Come on, guys. Sarah.
Lauren and Clifton.
Woo!
All these millennials.
And I have some more at the office. Yeah, you know, I'm surrounded. Me and Valita, the only people that's probably not millennials in the office. Me and my chief of staff. I just want you to know a couple of things. One is clearly, I love young people.
Yes.
I have always felt that it was my responsibility to bring young people along. Now, my staff will tell you, I drive my staff very, very hard. I expect a lot of them because I expect a lot of myself. And so when they leave me, because people always steal my staff, when they leave me, I want them to be prepared and to be their best. And so I'm going to continue to drive them hard. But I want you to know I'm proud of my staff. They put this together. They do this work. They just make me look good. Thank you, staff. I appreciate it.
Shout out to the staff.
I also want to say to young people, you know, after a Barack Obama, for black people, we are not going to be excited about the next election, no matter who is on the ticket, because it is not our president anymore in our minds. But let me say this. Somebody is going to win on November 8th.
Right. That's right.
Why would we not want to influence who that person is? Why? My grandmother did not clean people's houses so that I could sit down somewhere. It's not what this is about. This is about doing what is best for our people. If you do not vote, you are just selfish. I'm just going to say it like it is. We did not, as a people,
That's a good word. I'm gonna tweet that.
live through what we have lived through for us to sit down. Maybe we're disappointed. I get disappointed by things all the time. But every single day, I give the best I have.
Yes.
Every day. Not some days. Even though that day it may not be the best I've got, but it's the best I've got that day. Every day. Not because of me. I'm going to be okay when I retire. No, that's true. I said this to the earlier group. I came out of a neighborhood where everybody didn't get out. I got out. I've had good jobs. I have a good education. I've had decent salaries. I live in a decent neighborhood. My mayor is here right now. That's my mayor right there, Brad Sellers. Stand up, Brad. It's Mayor Sellers. I live in a decent neighborhood. And by the way, I live in a black neighborhood by choice. I don't live in it, and I'm not afraid to walk out and think I'm going to get shot.
Tell them.
All my schools are not horrible. I live in that neighborhood. It is important for us to understand that even though it might not affect me, it affects all of you. This is a millennial election. It's about the future. It's not about the past. And so if you don't want to have Pell Grants, then don't vote. If you don't want your children to go to a decent school, then don't vote. I know some of you have family like me that need food stamps or need WIC or need a housing voucher. You don't want them to have it, then don't vote. Y'all looking at me, everybody got some family like that. Listen, I got some family that does not know where I live. And I'm not gonna tell them.
Wait a minute.
If you don't
But
say
they
amen,
mine.
you lying.
Yes, yeah,
No,
you know,
amen. Everybody, amen.
but they're mine. My uncle used to say he'd rather see the devil and all his helpers than to see him coming. But they're mine. So if we don't do our part, my mother is on Medicare. I want her to have it.
Yes.
I know black women who have retired that their only source of income is Social Security. If you take them off of it, they will immediately go into poverty. You cannot care about other people and not vote.
Come on.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not exciting. It's not sexy. It's not exciting. It's, you know, it's what it is. But somebody is going to win on November 8th. And we need to have some part in it. Because if nothing else, people like me, and Angela can tell you, she worked with the caucus a long time, I can sit at the table. Other members of the Black Caucus can sit at the table. If you are not at the table, you are on the menu.
Yeah. That's right.
So give us the opportunity to fight for our people. Give us the opportunity to fight for you and your neighborhoods. Don't desert us when we need you the most.
Yes. Yes.
Be a part of this community of black people that shows the pride of who we are. We are not people that come from nothing. Angela's father can tell you, we come from kings and queens. We are great people. Let us not act like we are scratching around on the ground when we should be soaring with the eagles.
Yeah.
Why is